I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, I got diabetes a few weeks ago, and it was like one of the best things that ever happened to me. I actually thanked God for my diabetes diagnosis because it caused him to research and study like what is this and how do I live with it or deal with this. And so in that process, he learned like what foods and beverages do to you, like good foods, bad foods, different things like that. What am I missing? How much exercise? And so like all these things that he started doing, he realized quickly, like, man, I have more energy than I've had in 40 years back in my 20s. I guess 30 years. He's only 57. But yeah, just different things like that.
Everyone. Welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. We get this started here on Facebook. There we go. I am coming to you from South Dakota today. Dr. Saunders, where are you? Sometimes we forget to mention where you are.
I'm in Goleta, which is Santa Barbara, essentially. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the little town next to Santa Barbara, and it's just beautiful outside.
It's always beautiful there, isn't it?
I know, right? I
Yeah.
love it.
I can't complain. I mean, it is not beautiful like it is there. It looks nice out. I'm in about probably 47 degrees. So
Uh,
it's okay. It's okay.
oh,
The sun is out. I said I can handle anything as long as the sun is out. When the sun is out, I can do all things. So anyway, hello everyone. We're glad that you are here. This is the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. You may be seeing this on Facebook or YouTube. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to comment in the chat or whatever, however it's showing up for you. Those of you who are watching this live on Zoom, that means you registered for this webinar. It's free. You're not going to be charged for it. But if you would like to be notified about these webinars or sign up for these free webinars, you can do so at bartonwebinar.com, BARTON webinar.com. Say hello when you guys hop on. Of course, we always want to see who is here. Some of our friends are back. David is back. Robin, hello. Terry is here. Welcome back, you guys. We're so glad to have you. All right, we're creeping up here. We got about 85 of you already on. Nice. Good job coming on right away. That is awesome.
yeah, and David's from Colombia.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, wow,
Wait, Columbia.
South Carolina,
I feel like I should know this because David's been on here a lot.
or or is this Colombia, South America?
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking it's not, but I don't know that for sure now that I'm thinking about it. Because it's been on many times. Let us know, David, or we're just going to keep guessing here. So I'm just kidding. Awesome. Alexis is here, Puerto Rico. Hey, did I just see two? Oh, it just moves. It is Colombia, South America. Hey, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's what I
Great.
thought. Yeah,
Joyce from Canada.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Great. So many of you. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Susan from Quebec. All right. So
Yeah.
we got people from all over joining. That's great. We're excited though that you guys are here. I had a different topic actually that we were going to talk about today, and we switched it last minute. So it took us a little bit to hop on because we were chatting about some things, just having some good discussion. And so, first of all, before we get started, I just want to let you know that yes, Dr. Saunders is a medical doctor, but he is not your doctor. And so we will probably be discussing things today that he would recommend that you chat with your primary health provider before you implement his recommendations or the things that he says. We just want to make sure that you or that I say that disclaimer. I have to say a disclaimer about this every time. So you guys who are on here know that. But we were having a good discussion today, and today we are going to talk about the blessing of diabetes, kind of a shift in topic for us. And we would love to hear from you. So those of you, like I said, on the webinar chat, chime in. And actually, you can do it in the Q&A too. If you have questions, that's where I prefer that you post your questions as the Q&A, just the easiest to manage those. But earlier this week, in fact, Joe, our founder, may hop on here, and he had a discussion with someone recently. They were kind of planning out some things for having some discussions about the direction maybe for our company and etc. And the person that he was talking to had told him that he had recently been diagnosed with diabetes. And because of his diagnosis, he had this, I mean, like an awakening, realized some amazing things that he didn't pay attention to before. And he also has become more aware of how his body works. He's become more aware of the things that he truly enjoys, what brings him joy, uh, how to fuel his body properly so that he feels good. You know, before he wasn't doing that. And just really looks at his diagnosis as a blessing. How many of you can say that? Raise your hand if you can say, my diagnosis has been a blessing. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to guess not many people. Some of you maybe, some of you maybe. I've had various things come up in my life, different health issues, diagnoses. Is that how you say it? Diagnoses.
Diagnoses.
That I would not say, you know, when you get those right away, you're not thinking, oh, wow, this is such a blessing that I got this, right? But there's definitely learning that happens when these things are presented. And so we'd love to just hear more about that for you guys or from you guys. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are just about that. If that makes you uncomfortable, me even saying that the type 2 diagnosis has been a blessing in your life. I mean, some of you might be thinking, okay, that made me angry that you even said that. And that's okay. It's okay to have real feelings about that. Any thoughts about that, Dr. Saunders? How are most people feeling when they're coming into your office?
Most people are saying it's a curse of some kind, but you know, the way you look at things is really important because the curse is most often the blessing, and vice versa too. Very often people are blessed with everything they want in life, and they find that it's a curse. So that it's not so simple that you can have a division between what is a curse and what is a blessing. I remember when I first bought my practice in Santa Barbara, I bought it from a doctor who was in his 70s, and he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And we, you know, had discussions and everything. And I was at his house, in his kitchen, and we were signing the papers to transfer the practice from him to me. And he said, you know, as we're signing the papers, he said, yeah, pancreatic cancer has been the greatest blessing of my whole life. And I'm like, what? Okay, you've got my attention. Now I need to know. What do you mean by that? And he said, well, um, the expectation I was going to live 3 months. So for me, I was going to die any day now, right? And he actually lived 2 years. And during those 2 years, he said, I was able to travel. I went to visit some people that I needed to see in South America. He actually went to Colombia and Bolivia. And this is all while he had pancreatic cancer. He's not doing any treatments. He went to Mexico for some treatments, and then went on and traveled other places. He repaired a relationship with his daughter. He made sure his wife was taken care of, that she was gonna be taken care of, so he didn't leave any. If any of you have had the death of a spouse, you know that there's always loose ends. There's always just like tons of problems. Like everybody leaves a mess when they leave this world. And then somebody's got to clean up that mess, and usually that's left to, you know, whoever's surviving them. And so he was able to clean up all his messes, and he said, now here I am, signing the papers to make sure all my patients are taken care of, and I believe you're going to do a good job of taking care of them. And so that's the last loose end I have to tie up, and he died 2 weeks later. But that thought of it's been the greatest blessing of my life, and how he used his time to clean up his life. You know what? I think about that often with diabetes. People have type 2, and what do they need to do? They need to clean up their lives, and they go, okay, you know what? The one patient that was eating a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream every single night in front of the television. He goes, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I really love my ice cream though. And he cleaned up his life, and did a lot better after that. So those kinds of things, that's the type 2 diagnosis is, what are you doing about it? And that's where the blessing comes in, is the changes that you make.
Yeah. A couple comments from people here. Actually, I should start at the beginning, but I'm probably going to be missing some here. 1 second. David said, I cannot say I felt like it was a blessing at all. It did, however, make me really study nutrition and diabetes and eat much healthier now to control it. So I guess some positives came out of it, but it's not a blessing. Fair enough. I understand. Scott says, I feel that I'm in better health than I probably would be because it forced me to start thinking about my health seriously. Juliana said, it is a blessing to know that I have diabetes because now I know how to eat better to live a longer life. Robin says, this webinar has been such a great support and wealth of great practical information that helps me to feel more relaxed since I was told I had diabetes. Your expertise has been a real blessing for me and for all that I've found you and Leslie in the company. Oh, that's so great.
Thank you.
Yes, this is good. This is very good. Feel free to keep commenting, guys, and let us know kind of where you're at in your journey. And, sometimes that could change. We may feel very much like it's not a blessing. And then a year down the road, we may look back and that could change. And that's okay. Everybody's at a different place in this, of course, but we are here to help you guys on that journey. I don't know what other resources are really out there like this. Dr. Saunders being on here live to answer questions, to help you. That super expensive diabetes solution kit that's under, I can't even see it, under $20 for the virtual copy. I shouldn't say virtual, but the downloadable copy. Boy, plus a free webinar every week where you can ask your questions. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I've never heard of $20 health insurance or $20, maybe your copay for an office visit, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's a lot more than that for a copay for an office visit.
And mine's like $100. So
usually around $40 or more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just diabetes. If you look at other things, people come up with cancer and they get a wake up call and go, oh my gosh, I need to do something about my health. I need to take care of my body. And I was talking about one patient a couple of days ago who said that he got a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, and by the time he got the diagnosis, it was spread all over his body. And so he said, oh my gosh, I got to take care of myself. So he took care of his mental and emotional health first. And then he started eating right and looking into like health. What's a healthy way to eat, and what about sleep, and how do I lower stress, and all of those things. And in the process of doing that, his pancreatic cancer completely went away. All of it. It was spread all over his body. It was completely disappeared. And he continues now. It's 3 years later. He's still healthy, doesn't have any issues with cancer. The wake-up call, the diagnosis is the wake-up call.
That's good. Joe, welcome to the party.
Thank you.
We had a quick topic change. I don't know if you've heard any of this. We had a plan, but then we changed it. And we're actually talking about the blessing of diabetes. So we're getting a little controversial in here. But
I like it.
Yeah. And you know what? I just shared at the beginning, just briefly, that you had a conversation with someone who had a type 2 diagnosis, and they had said that it really has become a blessing in his life. Are you able to share any more details about that?
Sure. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, I got diabetes a few weeks ago, and it was like one of the best things that ever happened to me. I actually thanked God for my diabetes diagnosis because it caused him to research and study, like, what is this and how do I live with it or deal with this? And so in that process, he learned like what foods and beverages do to you, like good foods, bad foods, different things like that. What am I missing? How much exercise? And so like all these things that he started doing, he realized quickly, like, man, I have more energy than I've had in 40 years back in my 20s. I guess 30 years. He's only 57, but yeah, just different things like that as he implemented some of these things and realized, man, I didn't realize how bad I was feeling before. And now, like, now that I've changed some things around, it's like, holy smokes, like this is great. So that was really his story. And um, yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. I even think about a couple days ago, I woke up and I did not feel well. And it was just kind of this all day, just kind of, I did not feel well. And so this morning, actually yesterday, when I woke up and took the kid, I got ready, took the kids to school, and I was like, I feel so amazing. It's like you almost don't remember what it's like to feel good when you've been sick, but when you start to feel good, you love life so much more. You have all this just excitement about feeling good. You have energy to do things. You're looking at things differently. You appreciate the sun outside. Just there's a lot of little things that sometimes we take for granted when we're sick. And so I love hearing those stories about the people who are like, I'm on the other side of it. I even talk about this often, even having knee surgery a couple months ago. Took me a few weeks to get to the other side where I could see the light. You know what I mean? And once you get there, oh man, it's just worth it. It feels good to get a new appreciation for life. And so that's what I love hearing from a bunch of you who are commenting. I love that someone said, now I know what I can eat to live a long life. I know what I can live longer now. Yes, I have diabetes. Had I not known how poorly I was eating before, would I be able to live till who knows, 100 plus? I just love that. Such good stuff, you guys. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to talk through this.
Yeah, the other thing too is like the importance of having a good positive attitude about it, because when you get a diagnosis, it can be scary. Like it's like, oh man, I know this like kills a lot of people, and it does. But if you realize too, or if you take a positive attitude toward it, just like anything in life, if you have like an attitude of like, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out, like you're gonna be way better off, and you realize that the journey, it's part of I see it as part of a way that God uses things like this to help us grow. Like he uses our pain and suffering for us to grow closer to him and to grow as ourselves, who we're supposed to be, what is our purpose in life. And so like getting a diabetes diagnosis can be just part of that journey. It's like, okay, well, it is what it is. I guess I better figure this out and do something about it. And thankfully, Dr. Saunders, we have you and your, just the person of who you are, the generosity of sharing your time and your experience and wisdom and insights, because you've, worked with thousands of people that have had type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And how many years now have we been doing this webinar for free every week? And so like there's just a wealth of information. And so like if you're watching this for the first time or the 100th time, like you're in a good place, and just glad you're here. I actually just popped in a little bit. I had to charge my little lapel mic. I'm upstairs filming a new lemonade video, which is fun. I'm excited for that one to get released, but I wanted to see Dr. Saunders too, because I don't get to see him all that often. I was going to see you in Utah a couple of weeks ago, and I got sick and didn't make it, but
we had a great time, even though you weren't there.
All right. Well, enough for me. You guys keep going. You guys are rock stars. So I'm going to be in the background for a little bit.
Okay. So I was just thinking too, Joan said at some point people decide to kind of take this diagnosis and do something about it. They want more information, or they want to make some changes. And that's why all of you are here, right? You all are here because you decided you weren't going to settle for just maybe the diagnosis or these meds, or you wanted some more information. You wanted help to reverse this disease, or to have more energy, or who knows how you ended up here, but you're here. And so that's the first step, and we're really excited about that because we can do this. We have a group on Facebook called Barton Webinar, and you can join that. It is a private group, so you'll have to request to join. But we've built that so that you guys can chat with each other, share ideas, share recipes, share inspiration, etc. and just really be a community where we can help each other. Another thing that Dr. Saunders and I were talking about right before this webinar, and if you've been on the webinar, this is not a new topic, but we were talking about the importance of stress. And Dr. Saunders, what can you tell us about that? I know you've been talking a lot about this in the webinars, but what role does stress really play in our disease or even our diagnosis?
Oh, it can be huge. So just like looking at the breadth of what stress does, in the short run, it raises your blood sugar. So if you've ever had the dawn effect, the morning effect of your blood sugar, and you go, my blood sugar was 120 when I went to bed last night, and I woke up this morning and it was over 200, and I never ate anything in between. What the heck? That is due to a stress hormone called cortisol. Cortisol causes insulin resistance, and it immediately causes insulin resistance. It's not something that over time causes insulin, it's immediate. So as soon as that cortisol level goes up, which happens every single morning in a normal person, that's a normal thing to happen. As soon as it goes up, you get insulin resistance, and so here your body's cooking along and doing fine, and there's the flow of the ebb and flow of the glucose. Your liver's making glucose because you don't have any in your stomach, and so but then all of a sudden you add in that cortisol and get insulin resistant, your blood sugar goes up. Well, what if you have cortisol for long periods of time? I've told the story about one of my patients, Julie, who was overweight and just uncontrollable diabetes, uncontrollable on insulin, on 4 medications. She was doing injections of 200 units of insulin a day, which is, I don't know if you know about that. That's like 10 times what a normal person puts in. And it was still always over 200. Her blood sugar was always, if you're from Canada, it'd be over 10. Like it was high all the time. So what happened was one day, her blood sugar became low, like she got really low, and she was feeling horrible. And I said, get off your medications and let's find out what happens. And what happened is she's cooking along at like over 200 on tons of medicine and everything. And then all of a sudden one day it dropped to normal and stayed normal. So for 2 weeks, it was like every time she checked her blood sugar, it was normal. So then I asked her, okay, what did you do? Did you change your diet? Did you exercise? Did you get off those sodas? What happened? She goes, I didn't make any changes. Nothing happened. Nothing. No changes. I go, something changed. And so we finally figured it out. That was the day her daughter moved out of her house. So while she and her daughter are living together, they are like it's a constant battle. And her teenage daughter's running away from home. I hate you, and running away from home. And she's like, oh, my daughter, Mom. And so it was always always a constant stressor, whether her daughter was home or not home. Either way, she was under all this stress. So when her daughter moved out, they became best friends and like calling like, Mom, hi Mom, how you doing? And very happy to talk to each other. And her stress was gone, and her diabetes disappeared. Like she didn't have diabetes. She's on no medications, and her blood sugar is constantly normal. And so it was just due to stress. She only had stress-induced diabetes. Yeah, she was overweight. Yeah, she was drinking sodas. She didn't have a good diet and all of that other stuff that we always talk about. It was just stress. So don't underestimate that, because if you have uncontrollable or what they call brittle diabetes, that is often a stress-induced problem where it's not controlled, because when your cortisol is elevated, when your stress hormones are high, you can't overcome that. Your blood sugar is going to be high. That's what's going to happen. Why? because your liver's going to start pumping out sugar, and all of your muscles are going to be insulin resistant. And so it's going to go up. Like Julie, she's injecting 200 units of insulin and her blood sugar goes up. That stress, it's big. It's really big. So don't underestimate it.
And what do you say to someone like I have learned for myself, because I'm wearing a Whoop band and we've talked about our Whoop bands many times. You got yours back. Your mother doesn't have it.
I got it.
So I will have these days where I feel great. Well, a lot of times I don't feel stressed. And so then I'll see like my heart rate variability or something will be really low. And I'm like, I don't recognize stress. I don't think like a normal person. Or I don't know what's normal. Nothing's normal, but it doesn't manifest the way that I often hear people say, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. I don't feel it that way. And so what do you have for recommendations for people to lower their stress? For example, maybe for someone like me who doesn't even know when they're stressed.
That is a problem. And one of the advantages of having these Whoop bands is to look at your heart rate variability and look at your stress. And a lot of the watches, they'll look for heart rate variability to determine your stress. I went to a conference at UCLA and they said that particular measurement is not really accurate. So it's not something you can go by the numbers. It's more of getting an idea or a feeling for it. Very often people take up something like yoga or meditation or prayer. And in the process of connecting with the infinite, connecting with sometimes inside themselves, like with meditation, or outside themselves, connecting with God, is a great way to look at yourself from the outside and see, am I stressed? Because we often don't see it and we don't feel it. And very often people who say, oh, I'm so stressed because I have too much to do and not enough time to do it. But that's not necessarily what causes adrenal stress. Adrenal stress comes from change. It comes from holding on to anger. And these are things that people often put off. And there's a book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk called "The Body Keeps the Score," and it's about how people put off their stress, their anger, their bitterness, that life brings, because life is painful. And people are often very bitter about life. I didn't get what I wanted in life. All I wanted was to get married and have a family, and I just never had the opportunity. And people get very bitter about not being able to have children, for example. The things that, like, this is a good thing. Why don't I get this good thing that I want, or I've never had enough money in my life, or whatever. And they get bitter and they put it off, or someone hurts them and they ignore it or deny it. But the body knows it's there. And so that is I think it's a powerful book. I've had a lot of patients read it to try to find out, to try to see themselves from the outside and say, oh, that's me. And when he goes through the symptoms, when he goes through various patients, and I did it when I read the book. I go, oh, that's me. I found examples that, oh, I guess I am more stressed than I thought. I do have more of that kind of thing, and then you can start dealing with it and working on it. And so I did therapy, and I went to actually several different therapists, and started working on that. And then I found prayer is what I found was just remarkable and made all the difference in my life.
I also noticed too that I think in the mornings I'm always fine, but probably by about mid-afternoon, I probably am carrying some stress that I don't realize, or some things have developed that might be a time for me to set aside, even a half hour or whatever it is, to do some things. Someone had recommended a while ago Insight Timer, and then it came up to me again through some training that we're doing with our root bands and stuff like that. But I'm going to just share my screen one more time. Here is the Insight Timer. It's an app, and you can click on all these different people, and there's different types of breathing that you can do. We've talked, about breath work on our webinars. There's a lot of different breath work. So it could be a 5-minute breath work. It could be 10-minute session, or maybe it's just, for example, here's where you visualize your happy place, or, the different types of meditations that you can do. Some nice music, those are some options, but I always like to just kind of share some things that are recommended for me because it might work for someone else too. And what was the other thing I was going to mention? There's also a Calm app that I know a lot of people use, has a very similar thing as well. Yeah, and I like those because I like the breath work. It's good for me to have to stop and focus for a little bit. And you definitely notice when you're doing breath work, there is a change that happens when you're done, even if it's just a quick little session. So something to think about.
And that's a real thing. People who do when meditation was studied, when they put EEGs on people's heads who were doing meditation or breath work, it makes a difference. They get more of the delta waves, which is more of the relaxation, and they can actually see the difference. So it's a measurable difference if you're doing an EEG.
All right, we are going to move into some of these questions here, guys. So if you guys would like to come onto camera with us, we would love it. Why don't you click that raise hand button and I will add you as a panelist. You can join us on camera. Make sure you're appropriately dressed, and we ask that you please don't share your screen. I don't know if you'll be able to. I might have disabled it, but here we go. All right. So some questions that have come in. If you can post those in the Q&A, again, that's the easiest place for us to manage those. David from Colombia says, I had been eating, I've been eating only twice a day and having an empty stomach 15 hours a day, and my blood sugar was mostly normal. However, I began to feel weak, and when I checked my heart rate, it was up to the high 80s compared to my normal heart rate of 70. I departed from the low carb diet and had some bagels and a bit more food, and my heart rate returned to around 70. But my blood sugar shot up to around 300, even though it had dropped to around 130 overnight. I do not need to lose more weight. What should I do?
Okay, that's a great. Okay, so we'll talk about possibilities here, and I hope everybody heard that. Let's go over the salient features of that. Someone who is not overweight, doesn't want to lose weight, is on a very low carb diet, and the heart rate goes up, and then adds carbohydrates, the heart rate comes down. So where do you go with that to having normal heart function, normal heart rate? And part of that is when the heart rate's up, then the feeling of weakness and the energy comes back, and you feel better, and your heart rate goes down, and you feel more relaxed and calm when you eat a bagel. That. So those features. Let's talk about that. When you have type 2, you have something called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is where the insulin blocks the sugar, the glucose, from getting into cells. It also blocks amino acids from getting into cells. So protein is not processed as well either. It doesn't get into cells as easily. So the cells don't make protein as easily. And that's really important because all the enzymes, everything is made of protein. The microtubules are made of protein. And that's really important that your cells have all of this stuff. And when you have insulin resistance, it won't go in. So it's stuck outside. So you have it, but it's not getting into the cell where it can be used properly. So what happens? Well, you feel weak and tired, and why does the heart rate go up? Well, the heart rate's going up from relative hypoglycemia. And you have, remember, your heart and your whole body needs to be using about 60% of the energy coming from fat, and then 40% from sugar. And if you get insulin resistance, you decrease the fat, and so you have less energy. So the heart isn't putting out as much with each beat, so it has to beat more, to beat faster, to get the blood circulating, the same amount of blood circulating. And then your whole body has less energy. So one way to look at that is insulin resistance. If you increase your insulin sensitivity, then that works better. So someone who's on a very low carb diet and they're eating a lot of fat, guess what fat does? It causes insulin resistance. And so it's not a simple yes or no question. We've had a lot of people who do a very low carb diet and they're eating a lot of fat and they don't have that issue at all. But consider another thing that's going on here, another cog in this network of things, energy production, is that you have a set point of energy production of glucose. Your glucose level needs to be around, let's say, you're averaging 200 all the time. And it needs to be there in order for you to use that amount. In order to get it into the cells, you need to have that level of sugar, glucose, because why? Well, your brain, your kidneys, your heart, they have to bring sugar in, and it won't cross through the blood-brain barrier to get into the brain. It doesn't cross through membranes. They have to be brought physically in, and that's what the insulin receptors do. So now, what if your glucose is always high, so your insulin receptors are at a lower level, there's fewer of them because your glucose is always high. Now you drop the glucose down to normal. What happens? Well, now you get less glucose into your brain, into your heart, into your kidneys, into your cells. Less. What does that mean? Well, that means you're getting less energy. So number one, you're blocking the energy from fat. You can't make fat. Number two, you have less ability to bring that glucose into your cells. So those things are going on. That's all insulin resistance, and that's the problem. So how do you deal with that if you don't want to lose weight? The first thing you need to know is what your insulin levels are. And so the way to look at that is look at blood glucose and hemoglobin A1C and insulin and C-peptide. Do all four of those tests. And those four tests will tell you how your pancreas is functioning. If you don't do all of them together, then you're not sure, because if your glucose is 200 and your insulin is 3, you've got a pancreas problem. You're not putting out enough insulin, and so you got to deal with that, because otherwise you're not going to get stuff into your cells, glucose, sugar, and amino acids, unless you get more insulin. So you've got to make more insulin somehow, or sometimes inject insulin, or find out if you have autoimmune disease or type 1 or type 1.5. So you need those tests to know that. If you have the same issue and you have an insulin of 30 and your glucose is 200, then that's a totally different problem. You've got a whole bunch of glucose or insulin, but you're resistant to it. So you've got to fix that insulin resistance problem. So dealing with that would depend on what those tests come out to be. Ultimately, it's working on your insulin sensitivity, trying to be more insulin sensitive. The more insulin sensitive you are, the better. How does that happen? Well, we start off with a ketogenic diet, and that's one way of doing it. But you may consider the possibility, if you're on a ketogenic diet and you have high fat, that maybe the fat is making you more insulin resistant, and that's why you can't get the glucose into your cells and get the energy you need. So some people have to lower their fat dramatically, and that works well too. And you go, how do I do that? I'm on a ketogenic diet. Well, they have ketogenic vegan diets. But we have a whole bunch of free foods that you don't even count the carbs in it. And if you live on the free foods, then it's gonna be a low-fat diet. And the free foods include like broccoli and lettuce and cauliflower and spinach and all salads and all that kind of stuff. So you can have cucumbers and so the ketogenic low-fat diet might be a better way to go. And it might be necessary. But first, do the tests. Do those 4 tests.
And I'll share those actually in the chat here as well. Our Emil, who has been on camera several times, said that he's been through phase 1 and as of last week was able to maintain an average fasting blood sugar at or below 100. So that's awesome.
Wow, that's great.
And then Emil also said, I celebrated by having a skinny margarita on Easter Sunday and also enjoyed some pumpkin bread. The following Monday, my resting blood sugar level was 124, and it has been still over 100 for the last 3 days. So trying to get back to less than 100.
Go figure, man. It's just, our little forays out into the thing. Celebrations can mess us up.
Yeah. But you knew what you were doing and you were watching it and you're working on it again. And so that's good. Let's see. Mary said, I did the 72-hour fast this past week. It was great. I feel great. And it wasn't hard for me to do.
Wow, 72 hours. Good for you. Yeah. You know what? Once you wrap your mind around it, the rest is easy. Just not eating. It's like not doing something. It's really easy.
Nice work. I'm going to share some of our friends who are on camera here. Hello, all of you. Thanks for joining. If you guys would like to join us on camera, we'd love to have you. Hit that raise hand button and we'll add you as a panelist. You can turn your camera on. Let's see. Whitney says, what is the most comprehensive blood workup test? Where can it be obtained? And approximately, what does it cost?
Okay. Comprehensive blood workup tests. See, that's the problem. There are thousands of tests that you could do. And there's like hundreds of tests for diabetes, so it's not a simple thing like the comprehensive test. So if you look at just those 4 things for diabetes, that'll give you most of what you need, but if you're going to go like really comprehensive and you're doing all the islet cell antibodies and the GAD64 and all of there's a lot of tests, but those 4 basic tests, they're not that expensive. You can order them online. You can go to your doctor and ask, hey, can I do these 4 tests? And the cost is going to be different depending on where you go. But depending on what state you're in, you could just walk into a lab and get them done. And in some places, at a Quest lab or a LabCorp, for example, I know they do them, but it depends on the state. Some states require a doctor's prescription, and some states do not.
All right. A question here from Susan, who is joining us on camera. Susan has so many questions. Hello. I have been using Cinechroma for maybe 3 weeks, and I do believe it's helping. I already had reduced some of my meds with major diet changes. Yesterday, I stopped all my diabetes meds. Hopefully, I can maintain my levels. What else should I be taking to completely reverse diabetes? Good question.
Okay. So type 2, I'm assuming you have type 2 diabetes. Completely reversing it means that you don't have insulin resistance anymore. And that's what the complete reversal is. You no longer have insulin resistance. So what that means is increasing insulin sensitivity. And that can be done by anything that makes you more sensitive to your insulin. Fasting is a great way to do it. Avoiding carbohydrates is a great way to do it. Avoiding fat. There's only 3 problems with eating: carbohydrates, fat, and protein. Those are the 3 toxins that we always have to worry about. If it wasn't for that, you could eat as much as you want. We call them the macronutrients. So that's why fasting is so good for you too, because you're getting you're avoiding the things that cause the damage, that are the things you're toxic on. So when you completely detox, then you no longer have that issue. And then what? Well, then life is a continual detox. Why? Because we eat, because we have stuff. And the other day I was, where was, oh, it was Easter, right? And so I was at my brother-in-law's house, and they had a lemon meringue pie, and I don't normally eat sugar or anything. And he goes, "Here, have some pie." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I had some, um, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. It was actually a lemon meringue cheesecake, and so it was really rich. Um, and then I thought about that afterward. I thought, okay, well, I could detox from that. It's not a problem. And then I just fast for a day, and I'm good. And I do a 72-hour fast once a month anyway. So that's my normal way of doing things. Because because that's just what it takes. I don't know.
All right. And another question too, I just curious about is, are you using the diabetes solution kit? You are using it. Okay, so that's probably some of the diet changes you've already made then. So that's good. And that's what we have a lot of people that come onto the webinar and they don't even know about the diabetes solution kit. And so I'm always like, oops, I'm supposed to tell people about that. So hopefully you're all aware of that. You can find that at bartonwebinar.com. And that goes through our 3-phase program where we talk about really restricting your carb intake. And then we have all of you come on the webinar to ask those specific things that come up while you're doing this journey, because everybody's so different. And that's why Dr. Saunders will recommend testing or fasting, or, all of the things that he recommends. So, all right, good questions. Let's keep going. Alan says, this is Alan from Tucson, Arizona. I'm new to this program. I'm on metformin 2 times daily and now have added Synachroma. My fasting blood sugar is in the 120s. My goal is to get it under 100. Please clarify how many and when to take Synachroma. Should this help me reach my goal?
Okay. The answer to that is no. So take 1 in the morning. The purpose for Synachroma is to make sure you have the nutrients you need to use glucose properly in your body. So what I found was, when I was doing testing, I still do testing, what I commonly find in people with diabetes is that they're low in chromium, vanadium, which help you use glucose, selenium, which helps you make glutathione, among other things, and vitamin D is like a very common deficiency, and most people don't get enough. And then they get a supplement that has 800 units or 400 units or something like that. I'm like, that's a drop in the bucket. That is a tiny amount. So and so we looked around, where can we find something that's going to help people with diabetes? And okay, so Synachroma came up. Why? Because we put everything in there that people are missing commonly who have type 2. So is that the answer to your problem? Well, if all you had was a chromium deficiency and that's why you were insulin resistant, then yeah, it'll work for you. Unfortunately, it's pretty rare. We've had a couple of people come on and say, yeah, I started Synachroma and all of a sudden, boom, I didn't have diabetes anymore. Okay, that's wonderful. But if that's not your issue, then that's not going to fix your problem. You still, the diabetes solution kit, doing phase 1, that's how you fix your problem. That's how you get your insulin down to normal and your blood glucose down between 70 and 90 every morning.
All right, Javier says, I did change my eating habits and cut out carbs and Diet Coke, which was a really big deal for me. And we get a lot of people that tell us that. So I do understand. I still suffer through the lethargy and exhaustion, but I think more depression driven. It's a good feeling to be better when depressed, or at least know that I'm doing something about it. Let me see here. Patricia says, what is an optimal insulin level?
Oh, the perfect insulin level is between 3 and 6 on a fasting specimen. That's where you want it to be. If it's between 7 and 10, it's okay. It's a little on the high side. Over 10 is definitely high. And I know the labs always put this really wide range between 3 and 25 is normal. And the reason for that is because they're taking an average of a large group of people, most of whom have prediabetes and don't know it. So that's just the way it comes out. So between 3 and 6 is the answer.
All right, Allison said, just a comment. I was in the hospital last week for an ulcer. I am pre-diabetic. I commented that I needed a diet low carb and that I was working on trying to get rid of my pre-diabetes. He said, well, everyone is diabetic by the time they're 80. And at 72, it's normal to have an A1C of 7. So don't worry about it. I said,
What?
no. I said, no, I don't want to be diabetic and I don't have to be. He was a young, egotistical medical doctor.
Yeah, we all have an ego, right? Wait, I'm an old egotistical medical doctor.
But nice job for standing your ground. That's awesome. And I'm sad that they said that. Oh, that makes me so sad. But that's why we're here, right? That's why you're here. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I had someone in my office yesterday. She's 90 years old. She's getting around, and in fact, she's going to Europe in a few weeks. And she just wanted to find out why she had swelling in her legs and all of that. And I asked, well, did your doctor do this test? No. Did they do that test? No. Well, why aren't they doing any tests? They said, well, because I'm old and they think that I'm going to die any day anyway. And so who cares if I have got all these problems or whatever? And she says, but I'm pretty active and I want to continue going. So I don't want to be disabled. I'm like, good for you. Good for you. So we did it. I'm running a bunch of tests to find out what the issue is or issues are.
Arama says, I drink lemon and orange peel, warm water first thing in the morning. I check my blood sugar after taking my morning medication, and my blood sugar reading is between 70 to about 120.
Okay. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, between 70 and 90 is optimal. And up over 100 is relatively higher. If you're not eating anything, then that could be a morning, a dawn effect, which is still insulin resistance, which still means that it would be a good idea to stay on phase 1 until you're between 70 and 90 all the time.
Maria has requested the 4 tests again. I'm going to post them here as a comment. Hemoglobin, A1C, glucose level, insulin level, and C-peptide. Let me see here. Oh, if he said the ideal numbers for insulin and C-peptide, my phone was ringing and I missed it. Can Dr. Saunders go over it again? So,
okay.
Yeah.
So insulin, the optimum level on a fasting specimen is between 3 and 6. So somewhere around 5 is usual, and that's good. Over 10 is high. And I know what the lab is saying that between 3 and 25 is normal, but that doesn't include the fasting specimen. So between 3 and 6, that's where your optimum place is. And then C-peptide should be right around 1, like 0.8 to 1.1, like right in there. And that's optimum. So when I get someone who's 1.5, I tell them that they're a little bit high in their insulin.
Tanya says, I'm using the kit, I'm losing weight, and my sugar is going down. I'm not there yet, so I'm staying in phase 1 for now. My question is this: I struggle with writing down what I eat and writing down my numbers, blood sugar, blood pressure, and sugar at 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. How important is this part of the kit? I'm just terrible at journaling. What are your thoughts? And Tanya must be eating 22 carbs a day.
Yeah. So, if you don't know where you are, how do you know you're on the right road? You have to know where you're going. And so the idea of journaling is to see where you are. So if you don't record things, then you don't know. There has been multiple studies on asking people what they ate. comparing that to someone watching them what they ate and recording it, and then asking them the next day, what did you eat yesterday? And you know what? People are always wrong. And there was this very well publicized study. It wasn't even a study, that intermittent fasting causes heart disease. And they were just publishing it everywhere. That all the news media had it on. That the intermittent fasting causes heart disease. And so where did that come from? Well, they took a few people from what's called the NHANES study, which is a survey. And so this survey, during the survey, these people are asked to remember what they ate the day before and write it down. And the ones that ate within an 8-hour window of eating, they look, 20 years later, and they find that their increased risk of heart disease, of dying from heart disease. They go, aha, that's the problem. And it's such a ridiculous, it's not even a study, it's not even scientific, it's not science. It's just advertising. It's drug companies advertising, don't do intermittent fasting. And it's completely irrelevant.
Sad. Okay. Andrew said, when I fast, can I still take my supplements such as Synachroma and turmeric BP?
No. That's a good question. Yeah, consider those are food. And when you're fasting, don't eat food. And that includes supplements.
How about medication? I know people are going to ask that. So
yeah, medication is a different issue. If you have thyroid medication, you kind of need to take it every day. If you have, so some medications need to be taken, but when my patients come in and decide to do a fasting schedule, I have them be very careful about blood pressure medications and diabetes medications, because if you're not eating, your blood pressure is going to go down. And it's going to go to normal. And if you're taking a medication, it could go below normal. You can get hypotension. And then if you're on diabetes medications, it could lower your blood sugar too low, and you can get hypoglycemia. So be careful of those medications. And very often, most of my patients, I tell them, don't take your diabetes medication or blood pressure medications while you're fasting.
Okay, one last question. Harry wants to know what the Canadian numbers would be if, what's between 70 and 90, what that would be for Canada.
Oh, it's between 4 and 5. So if you can keep it under 5, 5 is pretty close to 100 in America, in United States terms. Yeah, between 4 and 5. So 4 point something.
Okay. All right. That's it for us today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Come back next week or come back tomorrow for the Healthy Heart webinar. We'll see you, Dr.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.